If it seems like there's always been a Kuder at Gonzaga Prep, maybe that's because for nearly 6 decades there was. Or maybe it's the thousands of people that Steve and Phil touched throughout their lives who had a connection to prep. But mostly, you just can't separate the words Kuder and Gonzaga because of the immense love they had for their alma mater. The poking, prodding, encouraging, challenging, and caring those two legendary, albeit curmudgeonly, brothers dished out to students and families are what we most remember and celebrate today.
The Kuder brothers were as different as they were connected. Phil, the science teacher, Steve, the Jesuit. Steve was the oldest by 8 years, but somehow they seemed closer in age, especially because of how inseparable they were. They both loved golf, smoking cigars and pipes, and G-Prep football. Steve was always the favorite in his family, at least according to his siblings. Not only was he the oldest, but a priest to boot. Steve entered the Society of Jesus in 1960 upon his graduation from Gonzaga Prep, where he had served as editor of the Gonzagan newspaper, and he was ordained as a priest June 23, 1973, at St. Aloysius Church. He earned his bachelor's degrees with Gonzaga University's class of 1966, majoring in classics, English, and philosophy. He later received a master's degree in English literature from Boston College and his PhD from the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. Before teaching at Gonzaga, Father Kuder taught English at Seattle Prep, the University of San Francisco, and Seattle University. He spent time as a visiting professor at Santa Clara University, Durham University in England, and at Newman College in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. During his 44 years at Gonzaga University, Father Kuder twice served as department chair in religious studies. An engaging teacher, Steve skillfully taught Old and New Testament scripture, Shakespeare, Tolkien, Flannery O'Connor, and modern literary criticism, and his courses in Christian leadership were legendary. So too was his love of poetry. Father Kuder served as acting dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and director of the honors program. He spent 6 years as rector of the Gonzaga University Jesuit community and served 25 years as a trustee of the university. Steve also served on the boards of directors of Brophy Prep in Phoenix and Gonzaga Prep. But I'll remember Steve as an incredibly smart man of joy, who not only had a lot of wisdom, but was always generous to share it. No one could condense and make things as succinct and clear as Steve Kuder. Steve and I served on the province consultation, a group of 4 Jesuits who are the main consultors of the provincial. Steve's wisdom always showed through, and his sage advice almost always turned out to be the right path. Steve was a good friend, filled with faith, who never took himself too seriously. He was a phenomenal homilist, and no one told a better story than Steve Kuder.
Phil likewise carved out his own legacy at Gonzaga Prep. He graduated with a degree in electrical engineering from Seattle University after earning a baseball scholarship in 1968. A natural athlete, Phil had his first hole-in-one at age 12, and golf would remain a part of his life till the very end. He served as G-Prep's girls and boys golf coach for decades, with his girls' team winning 3 state championships. And he never forgot a golf shot he took in his life. He always remembered the who, what, when, where, and how of each shot. But it was the classroom where he made his biggest impact. Many agonized over a Kuder homework assignment, and few ever felt the exhilaration of a 100% on a physics test. Phil also became an innovator in the field of technology, establishing the first tech lab and network at Prep. As a teacher, he was unforgettable. In Phil Kuder's class, there was much more than learning a math or physics calculation. He challenged his students to think critically and outside the box to solve a complicated problem. Lessons that helped carry them through life. But make no mistake, Phil knew his stuff, often challenging his students to compete against him in solving a complex multiplication problem. They with their calculators and he with his slide rule. Phil always won, but in the long run, it was his students who triumphed, embracing and loving the process of learning, even if it meant occasionally running a few laps in the courtyard outside his physics classroom. Of all the things at prep that Phil valued the most, it was the annual Thanksgiving food drive. His homeroom alone consistently brought in 10,000 pounds of food, piling above and below lab stations and desks. It was truly an incredible sight to see. Phil's homeroom won almost every year, mostly because he was intensely competitive, but also because he was genuinely moved by the poverty he saw, and he wanted his students to have their eyes open to the world around them and appreciate the blessings in their lives. Phil cherished family time, especially when on Camino Island with his children and grandchildren and the extended Kuder family. He also cherished the family masses celebrated by Steve. Phil would always raise his fingers to tell Steve how many times he had heard the same homily before.
Family and faith were everything to Phil and Steve Kuder. Perhaps they were so inseparable because of the belief they had in their students, the love of their family, and the genuine care for those around them. They also shared the unmistakable Kuder twinkle in their eyes that always shone just a bit bright after the most constructive of criticisms. The highest compliment you could ever receive was to be teased by a Kuder brother.
Steve and Phil are deeply loved, missed, and their lifelong contributions to Gonzaga Prep will never be forgotten. And now it's our distinct honor to welcome Phil and Steve Kuder into the Gonzaga Prep Hall of Fame.
Their love, commitment, and loyalty have taught us all how to be men and women with and for others.
Congratulations.